Welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate, the podcast that asks you what you want to be when you grow up so you can graduate into retirement with purpose and passion. I'm your host and valedictorian, Eric Brotman, and today I have a true kindred spirit as a guest. Troy Holt is a certified financial educator. He's a registered financial consultant, and he's the host of the Troy Talks podcast. He's also the Chief Encouragement Officer, which I love, of a financial consulting firm. He focuses on empowering and educating individuals and small business owners on wealth accumulation, preservation, and debt elimination. And he's on a mission to eliminate financial illiteracy, particularly in the African American community. Troy, welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate. I'm so glad you're here.
Eric, again, thank you for this opportunity. I'm truly honored. We are kind of in the same industry, so I'm honored to be here. So I'm truly grateful. I listened to the podcast and I enjoyed it. I even like the office hours. That I really like that, where you drop a little nuggets answering questions. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Oh, well, you're welcome. And now that you've buttered me up, you can pretty much have anything you want the rest of the show. That's perfect. I'm with you. I think financial illiteracy is a plague. It's something that we have to root out. And it's a very hot potato, whether you do it in schools, how do you do it in homes? You know, adults don't know how to do this, so they can't possibly teach their kids how to do this. But you've put together, not only did you write a really great book, but you put together a website with which is sort of how money works, and you've got money milestones. And what I like about what you put together is it is linear, so it's step 1, step 2, step 3. It's incredibly accessible. This isn't something that you need to be a money nerd or a financial wonk to enjoy. This is something really accessible to everybody. And so I'm hoping we can go through that a little bit today together. I'd like to first start with how you got into this business and how you became passionate about financial literacy as a cause too.
Yeah. So first of all, let me be transparent here. I didn't write the book, and then I didn't create the website, but the company that I am associated with, this is all their marketing, and it's great because it's great education and entertainment. And so how I got in the industry, so I may be telling my age, but it was some years ago. I was looking for a change. I had recently got out of the military, and then I was doing some civilian contracting work, and I wanted to do a career change. And one of the things that I seen, Eric, it's kind of funny. I seen that the guys that carried the briefcase and wore the suits tend to make the most money, and they didn't have to go out and do manual labor. So that was kind of got my attention, you know. And so a friend of mine told me about an opening at American Express Financial Advisors. It's now Ameriprise. And so I went there, and I we studied for the Series 7 and the insurance license. The Series 7, I failed every practice test. I remember I had a friend of mine who we met. He had just retired from the military, and he wanted to quit. We doing all these practice tests, so I failed every practice test, and he wants to quit. And then he said, "Man, Troy, man, I'm failing all these." I said, "No, we can't quit." And so I kept going on. We had a little young guy who was laughing at us. He just graduated from college with a finance degree. He's laughing at us struggling to get these tests. We both end up going in there, passing the test, and end up getting a license. And then the young man, he ended up failing. And it was something. Right. Yeah,
that's good. Well, that's because you studied. You studied. Right.
Yes. And it was one of those things that I was just passionate about. You know, I grew up in housing projects, and my family was poor, and I wanted to make a difference and make an impact and do something different in my family. And so now I'm at a point where I'm more chasing. And when I was younger, I was chasing success. Now I'm chasing significance. And so I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave an impact. When I die and people come to my funeral, I want them to say that Troy always tried to make an impact. And so that's kind of where I'm at now in my life, my journey, my career, is wanting to make an impact.
All right, and I hate to date you, but you're not only a dad, you're a grandfather too. You've got grandkids, right?
I sure do. I have 3 grandsons. Let's see, 9, 8, and 5.
Okay, yes, so are they all local to you? You're in Florida. Are they all local to you?
Yes, yes, they all here in Florida with me. Yes, sir.
Oh, that's awesome. So there's your significance, A.
Yes, yes.
And then the impact you can have on the community is sort of the other significance because of what you do for a living.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people get. I think some people get into the financial industries for all the wrong reasons. And it's funny because a lot of times what attracts people to our business is this idea that you can make a lot of money.
Right.
But but the ones who really stay and really are at this, and I've been at this almost 30 years, so I don't know how long you've been doing this, but the ones who stay are the ones who really do feel like they can make a difference. It's not about the money. It's one of those things where you can make a good living in a lot of different ways, but this is a way where we actually get to make a difference in people's lives every day. And it's incredibly enriching. And I'm glad that you feel that way. Now, financial literacy is important at all levels, but particularly for young people to avoid getting into trouble in the first place. And one of the milestones that your group talks about is, in fact, debt elimination. But you say, start first with milestone 1. And before you even get started, sort of find a navigator, find a co-pilot, work with a professional. Why do you think that's important, other than the fact that we are professionals, other than the self-serving obvious fact? Why do you think folks need a financial advisor or consultant in order to get on this path?
Great question. So number of reasons. Number one is, does a doctor perform surgery on himself? Does a lawyer perform?
Hopefully not.
Correct.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
Does a lawyer go in the courtroom and represent themselves, even though they're a lawyer? Even if it's another lawyer, he's going to get someone else who has some experience and expertise, especially if it's not area law. Then also we have a lot of miscommunication. There's some great information out there, but it's a lot, and then navigating through the misinformation. So I think people that have somebody who has some experience and some knowledge can guide them and help them not make the pitfalls of DIY and also the misinformation. So I think it's important to have that that person to guide it. And I tell people too, when I'm in a client relationship with them, hey, you still the driver. I'm going to make recommendations, but you still can say no. And I'll voice, I say, well, I don't like that, but I recommend you do this, but they still in control that they can say yes or no.
So I think that's an important fact, that ultimately we may be navigators, but it's not our money, and to be dispassionate about it is important. And I don't know about you, but my wife and I have a financial advisor we work with who isn't me. Because not only is it hard, it's kind of like an editor. It can't edit their own work. If you write a book, you can't edit your own book. Somebody else has to read it, because your brain is seeing what you think you wrote or what you meant to write, not necessarily what's on paper. And I think it's the same thing with the financial piece. It's the accountability of, why did you do this? We could rationalize any kind of behavior. All of us can. We're human. Correct. And so I do think that that's valuable. So let's walk through some of these, because I think you gave a compelling reason why people really do benefit from having some kind of financial advice. Now, one of the challenges is financial advice isn't one size fits all. There are lots of terrific firms out there who say, oh, we can't wait to talk to you, but not unless you have $10 million or $1 million or whatever it is. And so there's kind of a loathing, I think, at times of folks in the financial business, because you can make somebody feel real small real fast just by saying, sorry, you don't meet our profile. I don't know about you, but I get all the mail at home from the solicitations of financial advisors who really are wasting their money because they don't know what I do for a living, but that's beside the fact. And it all says, hey, if you have $500,000, we'd like to talk. Well, isn't that convenient? Where were you when I was 20 grand in debt and needed help to get myself going? So milestone 1 is to get financially educated, and I know you have a resource for that. What are the places? How do you know what's real and what's not? Because when I was a kid growing up, we knew it was true if it was on TV, and of course I say that as a joke. Now if it's on the internet, it must be a fact, and hopefully everyone knows better. But it's the same idea. So how do you decide what is really good, objective, helpful advice, and what is either a thinly veiled sales pitch or just plain wrong?
Well, you kind of said it, earlier. Basically, there's no cookie cutter approach. Everybody's situation is different. So it's sitting down with somebody who is not trying to just sell you products, but to, help, first of all, educate you. One thing I like about the 7 Money Milestones and the whole how money works, it teaches strategies and principles. It doesn't push products. It's teaching these strategies and principles. Milestone number 2 is proper protection. Number 3 is emergency fund. Those are principles that everybody can incorporate, whether they have a advisor or not. They technically can do themselves. Debt management, cash flow, building wealth, and protecting wealth. All of those are just principles, just strategies and education. And then you get more in details once you find out more about the client. I tell people there's 2 things when I'm working with clients. I said, number 1, for me, it is, and I said, excuse the terminology, but for me, when I work for you, it's not a one-night stand. It's a long-term relationship. I do tell them that.
All right. Well, now we've gone beyond PG straight to at least PG-13. Okay.
Right. And I tell them, that, it's all about, everybody's different. Their goals is different. So we can't always just pitch products, because we really have to find out what that particular client and then things change. People get married, they get divorced, they have children, their needs change, their goals change. And so you have to constantly, sometimes you have to change the plan because life change and life hits us sometime. And so it's just, helping those navigate through that. So when I say the one night stand, a long-term relationship, I want to see their grandkids or go to college, and they let me know, hey, they send me pictures. Because my philosophy is people over profits, relationships over revenue, and impact over income. And I think as advisors, if we keep that mindset, we can make an impact with people along with making the income.
Now, what kind of things do you do when there are folks who really can't afford to work with you in a consultative way? Do you point them at these resources? Are there other places where you suggest that they go to get some basics? Do you know financial coaches and financial therapists and all these other kinds of resources that are out there? How do you determine whether you can help somebody or whether maybe you might do more harm than good by engaging because of the cost of working with you?
Yeah. So, one of the things I tell people, if I can't help you, I won't hurt you. And so sometimes there are people that, that they just not in a position, and so what I try to do is try to guide them and give them different resources or opportunities. Maybe it's they don't make enough income. Maybe they're working part-time. And so, I try to say, hey, have considered maybe a job. If you got a job you're looking for, if I know somebody, I can maybe introduce you, referral, because I believe that if I stay with you when you have nothing, and then you get a big inheritance or you win the lottery, then you'll remember me because I was with you when you have nothing, and I didn't treat you differently. And I believe that if we keep that mindset, people, well, Troy, you was with me when I didn't have nothing, and now I have something, and I want to come and work with you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and that's the kind of relationship building, and that's the kind of dignity that you can provide in a relationship with any human being. So I'm with you. So financial education we covered. The next one is protection. Now, protection means a lot of things to different people. To some people, it means a helmet. To some people, it means a seat belt. To some people, it means insurance or other kinds of risk management. Mm-hmm. What do you think are the maybe 2 or 3 spots where families or couples or even individuals are least prepared from a protection standpoint?
Well, first of all, I think one of them is life insurance, where people are either uninsured or uninformed. They say, I have it on my job. They don't realize that on the job, most of the time they're renting it versus owning it. And they should have something outside of the job. But also, one of them that a lot of people don't think about is disability. We're more likely to have a disability because we're only going to die once, but we may have multiple times that
Well,
we're
I hope so.
disabled. You're right.
Yeah. I don't want to do that over and over again.
I know, right, Eric?
Yeah.
But disability is a big one that, people miss out, because it provides income protection, but also long-term care, which is really finna be a huge issue because baby boomers are retiring, the cost of healthcare is going up, and that's just a big issue. When I first started with American Express, the big issue was retirement, and retirement planning, and they talked about long-term care, but I don't think people really took in consideration the cost of healthcare was going to be so significant. And I think that has blown a lot of things out of proportion because a lot of seniors now are spending a lot of money on healthcare. Oh yeah, I'm safe for retirement, but I didn't realize my healthcare was going to, call it, and so those are the three areas I think is very important that people are looking at for as risk management.
Okay. All right. No, I can't argue with any of those points. I think that makes sense. None of us realized how expensive it would be to get older and how long we might live. I think a lot of the programs and systems in the United States were set up based on a certain life expectancy that hasn't really been adjusted for decades. You look at Social Security, for example. Social Security was designed to be for the absolute extreme elderly. It was supposed to be a safety net if you outlived your money, basically.
Right.
And now, there's people claiming at 62 who could live another 50 years. And that ultimately doesn't work. The math won't work.
Correct.
We're living too long. And the cost of healthcare is not the same as the cost of groceries. I mean, some of it's technology, some of it's we could beat on some insurance companies if we wanted to for driving prices up, and also some of the tort reform and the lawyers. And I mean, there's lots of reasons why healthcare in this country is a mess. There's no one culpable party for sure, but I'm with you. Now, you talk about an emergency fund. And an emergency fund, this is your sleep at night fund. This is your, and you referenced the Three Little Pigs, and the one with the brick house, as I recall, did better than the other two.
Right.
How big should an emergency fund be? Is there a rule of thumb? Because I think every family's different, and it's hard to say, oh, here's the number, or here's a number of months. But what do you tend to use as a barometer?
Yeah, well, the rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of income, put away, but it could be different for others. Some it could be more, some could be less. But I think they said 40. I think the number says 44% of Americans don't have $400 for emergency, a $400 emergency,
right?
Which is huge. Yeah, 44% don't have enough cash to cover a $400 emergency. So I think that's huge. And you talked about this. I heard this with the interview with Julian and his wife. One of the big things, emergency fund, I tell people that one of the simplest and smartest things they can do is pay themselves first. And you agree with that, Eric, too. You've been a CFP. Pay yourself first. And I tell people, and what I try to get to them, we want you to get to 3 to 6 months amount. I said, but the mindset and the discipline is just a start, whether it's $1, whether it's $10. The amount doesn't matter. It's you getting the discipline and the mindset to start. And I said, then the amount will come because you're in the habit of doing it. And now you can set it up where it's automatic. And so I really try to emphasize people in that, for the emergency fund, start setting aside, even if you have to use it. I remember years ago when I was putting money, paying myself 10%, I would have to use it because I didn't have enough money. So I would have to pull it out of the savings account and use it. But I disciplined myself and I kept doing it. And I still do it today. I still pay myself 10%. Now I'm a man of faith. So God gets his first and then I get mine. But some people, they don't worship God and they don't give like that. I understand, but they need to pay themselves a start. And I think it's very important.
No, well, it is. And that's why they call it an emergency fund, because when it comes up,
Correct.
you need to have it. I think something like half of all Americans are one missed paycheck from a serious problem. I mean, really serious problem.
True,
And that's not good. And so that gets us to milestone 4, which is debt management. Debt is it's an albatross. It is like weighing yourself down. What do you tell folks who are in debt? First, what do you tell folks that are in debt that's manageable? And then what do you tell folks in debt that is frankly unmanageable and can't be resolved? How do you delineate between those two kinds of folks?
Yeah, though it's tough, because can you create more cash flow? Can you cut back expenses? Really dig deep and look at your spending habits. I remember I wasn't tracking during COVID. I wasn't tracking my funds during COVID. Right around the height of COVID. I remember it was November around Thanksgiving, and I looked at my food bill. It was $1,200. And I was door dashing a lot. I'm like, this is crazy, because I never spend like that. But it's Thanksgiving also, so we spent food for that. And so staying on top of it and tracking it, it's important. And so sometimes you can try to give people some advice. I like the Dave Ramsey snowball effect. Some people may be avalanche, but some people sometimes is a matter of their spending habits. They need to stop buying things on credit. If it's not an if it's a liability, if it's not an asset, stop buying those things. Maybe cut up those credit cards. Sometimes you got to make tough decisions to get people like that, and so to help people to get them out of debt. Can they refi? Can they do different things? So there's solutions out there. They might not want to hear them, but sometimes it's really tough when people have a lot of debt.
So that brings us to cash flow, because arguably it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you spend more than you make, you will eventually have a problem. And if you're not saving enough and you spend more than you make, it's like pouring money into a bucket, but having a hole at the bottom of the bucket bigger than the spout at the top. It's not going to work. So there's only 2 ways I know of to increase cash flow, right? You can either increase revenue or income, or you can decrease expenses. Correct. Is there a third one that I don't know? I mean, guys, I guess refinancing, you can adjust certain things, but what do you tell folks where cash flow is the issue? Are you saying get a side hustle or a second job or work more hours? Or are you saying, let's stop buying some of the things you're buying that aren't necessary? What's the best approach there?
I can't say what's the best approach, but I think all the above, because it depends on who the client is. But I will say is, I think one thing COVID taught us was that many of us need to have more than one stream of income, and not just rely on the job. Have some type of side business, side hustle, something that, in the event of something happen, you still got a stream of income coming in. So we can get people to change that mindset. I remember working with American Express. They taught us a lot how to find money, especially when we're trying to get people to start setting up a plan. Some of that, look at your cell phone bill. I worked in the wireless industry for a number of years. And sometimes the cell phone bill, you can find some money there because maybe they have an old phone or have the old line and they paying insurance. So look at your deductible on your homeowner's insurance, on your auto insurance. Maybe we could free up some money there for some cash flow. Even there's I work with a lot of single mothers many times, and sometimes they get $8,000-9,000 income tax. You and I know is really you're giving the government your money for free. But I try to tell them, hey, take 2,000 of that and drop it in maybe an IRA or a Roth or a life insurance policy instead of spending the whole thing, because you're gonna need it, and then you can set up the child for a generational wealth. Start putting it away. So different things like that. So maybe let's get a little bit more, talk to HR, let's get a little bit more money instead of getting a $8,000, maybe you get $6,000, we get an extra $100 a month cash flow coming in. So there's different things, but are people willing to do that? One of the things I really find, education is great, but then you have the other challenge of implementation.
Oh yeah. No question. I mean, people love tax refunds. Tax refunds, you're right. It means that you've given the government an interest-free loan for sometimes up to 15 months. But people are very afraid of getting a letter from the IRS that says you owe us money, whether it's $100,000 or a nickel. Nobody wants a letter from the IRS in their mailbox. So I think the perfect tax plan is one that ends in a zero at the end of the year, where I agree with you. You're either paying something, but it's de minimis, or you're receiving something, but it's de minimis, and you don't have to worry too much about it. So, all right. So now cash flow is under control. We've got debt under control. We've got an emergency fund. We've got some protection in place. Now we're ready to build wealth. The word wealth means a lot of things to a lot of people. What does the word wealth mean to you?
The word wealth means to me is not just money. It covers so many things. It could be wisdom, it could be knowledge, but it's also assets, income producing assets, and not just we look at entertainers and we look at athletes. That's not wealth. They're just rich. But wealth is something that can pass on for generations. You never have to touch the principal. And we know there's big families like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and stuff. That's wealth. And there's an old saying, wealth is quiet and rich is loud. So we know you don't even know these people that got all this wealth. That's what I. Now you're from Tennessee. You're from Tennessee, but in Texas they call that big hat no cattle. Those are the folks driving the fancy car who couldn't come up with $500 if they had to. It's kind of funny, but it's also true. Rich is loud. I like that. The idea, the difference between rich and wealth was something I quote the great philosopher Chris Rock in my book when he talked about wealth being relative. He said if Bill Gates woke up tomorrow with Oprah's net worth, he'd want to jump out a window. True. That's how relative wealth is. I have a good friend, friend who's from Bulgaria, who says it's a Bulgarian proverb, whether it is or it's not, that says being wealthy is just doing better than your neighbor. So everybody's got a different. Everybody's got like a different way to look at it. So, all right, the last thing is now you're building some wealth. You're investing in different ways. You've got some income producing assets, some passive income to go with whether you're blessed with a pension or not. Most people aren't anymore. Whether Social Security exists in its present form by the time my children and yours get to the point where they're collecting, who knows? But now you got to protect that wealth. And that means a lot of different things. What do you mean when you say protect wealth? Well, let me give some high profile people that, especially in my community, I remember. And some also, Aretha Franklin, Prince, Chadwick Boseman, all of them were millionaires, even DMX, and they had all this money accumulated, but they had no estate plan. They had no wills. They had no trust. Everybody maybe not need a trust, but everybody should have a will. And I tell people, I said, many of us, and most of us do not like the government involved. So you got two options. You got the government to dictate to where your assets go, or you can dictate to where your assets go. So if you allow the government, if you want the government, then just don't have a will, and the government can dictate. And if you have one, you can dictate where you want your assets to go.
Well, that's a pretty compelling way to look at it, because the government can't manage a post office with the greatest monopoly on the planet. So I'm with you. I feel that 100%. So we've been through the 7 steps. We've been through the 7 steps. I think it's really terrific, and I think you're doing a lot of good for a lot of people, and I applaud you for that. I got to ask you now more introspectively. You talked about having an impact. And you talked about some significance. What do you want to be when you grow up? What's that look like?
I want to be, one of my ultimate goals is to be full-time in the ministry, and that's just to have the freedom to just strictly ministry, and money generating income is not an object. It's all just ministry. And I guess that would be what I want to be when I grow up, just to be able to have the full-time access to ministry, to be able to, our church, our pastor is doing some missionary work over in Tanzania. And so if I need to go over there, I can go over there. Don't have to worry about what's going on here. Go over there and maybe a month over there. So that was what I want to be when I grow up. All
right. Well, I have no doubt that that's where you're headed. Because if you're following your own steps and you're taking good care of people, then you will in fact build wealth and put yourself in a position to do that. I have no doubt that that's in your future, and I wish you well with it. We need an extra credit assignment, because I don't know anyone who likes homework, my kid included. But extra credit assignments, I don't know about you, but I always did them, because I figured those were free points on the test, right? Free points are good points.
Yeah.
What would your extra credit assignment be for folks who spent a half hour with us today?
My extra credit assignment will be for those that are listening and who have not implemented paying themselves first, to start paying themselves first. That would be the extra credit assignment for them to start now, whether it's $1 or whether it's $10. Start, because if you can't do $1, you definitely can't do $10. So wherever you start, and just continue to do it, and eventually it'll grow. And you'll get the mindset. It'll become a part of you. It'll become a habit. And I think that will be. And I would add to that, read Atomic Habits. I can't remember the author's name, but a great book, Atomic Habits. So that would be a second part to that, because he talks about those habits.
2 extra credit assignments is one too many. You have to pick one. No, I'm only kidding. Listen, you talked about wealth of wisdom and wealth of experience, and you definitely have both, Troy. This was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can folks check out more about you?
Yes, you can find out more about me at troyholt.com. That is my website, troyholt.com. I'm very active also on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm also active on LinkedIn.
Excellent. We will put your contact info in our show notes when the show goes live. I thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and it's good to keep doing the right thing. I can tell that you're making a difference in people's lives, and that's important to you, to them, and to all of us in the community. So thank you for doing what you do.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this conversation with you.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank all of you for listening and watching today. We'd love to hear from you. So please send us a message or leave us comments at don'tretiregraduate.com or on social media. If you enjoy the show, don't keep us a secret. Tell your friends and family so that they can join you on your journey to financial freedom. Please leave us ratings and reviews on your favorite podcast platform. Those are priceless to us. We'll be back next week with another installment of Office Hours, and in 2 weeks with another engaging guest. For now, this is your host, Eric Brotman, reminding you, don't retire, graduate.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Brotman Financial or any other entity discussed.